Hi, this is Ishahn, and you're listening to Sonic Perspectives.
Hello, and welcome to another interview with Sonic Perspectives. My name is Samantha Buckman, and today I am joined by one of extreme metal's most prolific artists, vocalist and multi-instrumentalist, Ihsahn. It is fantastic to have you here today, and I am really excited to talk about the 2 EPs that you've put out this year. So,
thank you very much.
You put out both Telemark and Pharos, which just came out a few days ago, which is fantastic. I have been seeing it get so much good reception from everyone. What exactly inspired you to embark on this project, to have these 2 distinct and unique EPs? How did that get started?
Well, first of all, I have when I look back, I have been releasing quite consistently another full-length album every second year since I was 16. And now I'm 44, so it was kind of a good time to do something slightly different. And my wife and creative partner has kind of challenged me for quite some time to do something more purely black metal related, and hence the idea of doing something, distilling out the extreme elements of what I do. But for me, I've given this some thought because I grew up on very strong conceptual albums, from Iron Maiden and King Diamond and Judas Priest, and or just the ebb and flow of a full album where the songs kind of combine into something greater than just the individual songs. For me, that is how albums are, and that's how I kind of approach things, that the songs need to level each other out in a sense, kind of create a full ebb and flow. So they're doing something just like Telemark for a full album, that would never be, that would be too limited, I think, for a full album. And the same with Pharos, something in that. So for my albums, there will be more of a mix, I think. But this allowed me to kind of go further in either direction and kind of distill out to be very, very specific. So for the Telemark EP, of course, and basically I approached both EPs at the same time. I wrote them after each other, but the conceptual idea was kind of conceived first. And as with all my albums, I have this black book where I write up what kind of album I'm going to make. That'd be sonic references, lyrical references, everything. And this time I just split the page down the middle, and everything that was kind of my musical heritage, my cultural roots, my geographical roots, the folklore of Telemark, the Norwegian language, everything was on the one page that went into Telemark, and everything that was kind of foreign, new musically, and even the titles of the cover songs indicate travel, something that is out at Rhodes and Manhattan skyline, so it's really a mirror image, of each other. And I feel I could go even further in each musical direction than what I would have kind of approaching a full-length album. Sorry for the very long answer, but
Oh no, that's a fantastic answer. So given that Telemark was kind of closer to home to you in a way, both stylistically and in terms of your culture, what were the most challenging parts of doing Pharos and stepping out of that comfort zone?
It was really just not relying as much on the musical parts of me that are more or less second nature. That over the years I guess I become quite confident in my screaming style vocals, the relying on heavily distorted guitars, for my arrangements, so and with Pharos there's very little of that in comparison. So I kind of had to build the kind of sonic textures with from a different point, really, and not really relying on my go-to tools, if you will. So that was much more challenging.
And of course, because this is just how music fans are. Everyone's going to be looking back at everything you've done in the past and comparing Pharos to that and saying, well, what's this, you know? So I guess given that, how would you describe Pharos independent of all your past work in terms of the styles that you really preferred and I guess the sound that you were going for?
Concretely about Pharos, I would say I picked out, as with Telemark, I picked out the cover songs that I wanted to do before approaching writing the original material, and that was, you know, part of the experiment. And I think it would be easiest to, in that respect, to explain the original material of Pharos in light of the two cover songs. So basically, the portrait cover is, you know, from a different subgenre of pop music or electronic music, where everything is so quietly performed. It's such a subtle performance, you know, and it's a very kind of repetitive and minimalist approach. But sonically, everything is at the verge of distorting. So there's such a tension there's a juxtaposition of performance and sound that is something very unique, I think. But still kind of concentrating on a minimalist approach, you know, but where everything has a very strong texture. And moving on to the Manhattan Skyline Aha cover, which is kind of a complex song, you know, compared to, you know, the 4-bar loop repetition of today's pop music. So it starts out, oddly enough, in a 3/4 beat, but it's kind of an ambiguous, mellow, slightly melancholic way. But then it kind of shifts gear into a 4/4 beat and with a really guitar-driven rocking sound, and then that goes back to the 3/4s and again into this larger-than-life style 80s chorus. So if you see the two songs really combine 4 kind of musical levels and textures within 2 songs, and all these elements separately was something that I wanted to explore, you know, how to approach arranging and writing the original songs. So these two, the elements of the 2 songs heavily influenced how I wrote the original material. Did that explain it?
Yes, yes, that was fantastic. And so, given that you did start with these cover songs, when did you start the writing for both of these EPs, and when were you recording them, and how long did it take them to get to, you know, finished product?
Oh, that's I kind of can't remember now. I mean, the Telemark EP was very easy. That went very quickly. So but I had been starting to write everything for Pharos, you know, before the Telemark EP was finished. So they've been kind of ready for a long while, and even Pharos was totally finished before this pandemic situation hit. So I'm sorry, I can't really remember. I probably spent a year or something, like I would do because it's 10 songs recorded and produced and mixed, even though separately. So that's usually the amount of time I use. And of course, they were intended as, you know, part of the project was, of course, they were intended to be extended into the live scenario. So basically, I was scheduled to headline the Inferno Festival in Oslo with my Telemark set, where I, you know, basically did the Telemark EP in its entirety with songs from my catalog, sharing that same extreme aesthetic. And then, as a consequence of this Pharos in the autumn, you know, I wanted to do touring based on those aesthetics of my musical output. So kind of doing 2 different sets, you know, as extensions of the EP releases. But here we are.
Yeah, you were supposed to come to the US for Prague Power this year. That was supposed to be last weekend. Big bummer there. And it seems like pretty much all of this summer's festivals got wiped out, and so did a bunch of tours going into next year. So I guess which one of those are you most looking to pick up again once concerts resume?
At this point, all of them. I mean, I was really looking forward to going back to Prague Power. We've been scheduled with my old band Emperor to be doing South America. I was supposed to be in Japan next week, I think. So there's so many things. This was originally, as I'm sure many of my colleagues, it was supposed to be a huge live year for me, both with my solo work, with the ECPs and with Emperor. So, but we'll just have to try and make up for it in next year or whenever things are approximating something normal, if ever.
Absolutely. And so you a lot of the festivals that you do in the summers are with Emperor, and a lot of the tours you do are still with Emperor. So how is performing your solo work different than going on with the band? Like how is it different for you as an artist to perform those two sets of your career?
Oddly enough, I mean, and this was something that I was very curious about before going back to back. So sometimes, previous summers I've been playing the same festivals with both bands, in the same weekend. So I remember we did the Tuska in Finland, quite big festival there, and I was performing with Emperor on the Friday, and with my solo band on Saturday, and on Sunday I think Leprous with my brother-in-law played on Sunday. So we were like heavily. My family was heavily represented at the Norwegian delegation of the festival. So no, but back to your question. Honestly, it's almost no difference, because even though the music is quite different at times, and of course there are technical things, to how we approach it, and with my session musicians, and Emperor with the most of the original band, etc. But the experience of it is very, very similar in the sense that when you get that connection, and you're kind of in that performance bubble, it doesn't really matter what the songs are, because you're kind of just connecting with whatever is there. It sounds a bit metaphysical, I guess, but it's basically I've learned to, because as Norwegian I think we're very self-aware, but then I'm thinking that no one is traveling and paying for tickets for a festival or anything to go watch me be self-aware on stage. So I think I just have to leave that at the side and just perform the songs and let be a channel for whatever energy is in there, and then I can cope with my own embarrassment if I screw up afterwards. So that's, in that sense, that's how I approach live playing in general. So it's sometimes you get that connection going, and sometimes it's more a regular day at the office, but it doesn't really matter which band.
Hard to imagine that being another day at the office.
For most it's not, yeah.
But I actually realized there was one live performance that you've done in the last few months, and that was when you were a guest on Shining's live stream for their Black Jazz performance. So how did you feel about that, performing for a live stream rather than for a crowd? Like, what was that experience like, and would you be open to something like that in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. And the Shining guys are good friends of mine, and also the organization behind making that live stream happen. The camera guys, the guys who set everything up. So it was all done very professionally, which I think is key to something like that. That it's in this day and age where we do a lot of live streaming due to the pandemic situation. I think the focus on keeping it very exclusive, and giving people, adding up that whole experience, even though it's online. And I think as a good example, I was watching the Behemoth live stream, which was so beautifully directed, with kind of, the way they were filling in the in between, where you usually have the crowd cheering. They filled it with, emotionally laden kind of slow motion pictures and everything. It was just very professionally done, and I think that is key. So in that regard, there's definitely something that I would do if it comes to that. And I think Shining did an amazing job, and for me it was just easy peasy coming in, last minute and doing the one song. A lot of waiting.
Well, there are worse things to wait to than a black jazz show.
Absolutely.
And so just one thing I realized I kind of glossed over is we talked about like the lyrical content of Telemark a bit, but not as much of Pharos. We definitely talked more about its design and its style. So could you, I guess, go a little bit into like the themes and the concepts behind Pharos?
I guess it's very open-ended, and it's not impersonal at all, but it's not as obviously personal as I think Telemark is, because that was so, just singing in my mother tongue kind of thing. But Pharos in a way takes more of a wider perspective, lifting the gaze a little bit, and like Spectractive Feast is a very like fly on the wall perception of society, stuff like that. But in general, I think why I chose Pharos to be the title, and using the lighthouse as a symbol, because it kind of lent itself to, what can I say, some musings, because it's a very strong symbol, and very, to me, very multi-dimensional, both symbolizing, to have, get yourself those goals, like these beacons and goals in your life. There's the element of, you could be, a lighthouse for someone else or your surroundings, but working at a lighthouse, for tradition, it's one of the most solitary things you can do, because it's often this kind of beacon of light, but at this cold rock in the middle of the sea. But when reading up about Pharos, the one of the wonders of the world, the lighthouse of Alexandria, I realized, the kind of military strategic element of the controlling the lighthouse. That was very important, because, and metaphorically speaking, I think I thought it was interesting, because it's not just about what you invite to your shores, but it's also when you turn it off, and you kind of have control of what you invite in and not. So yeah, that is the overall thematics, I think. Some musings around different perspectives of that.
Well, that's really interesting. That does have a lot of dimensions to it, and that definitely makes me want to go back and listen to it again to pick it out from all those dimensions. Well, thank you again for your time this afternoon. I am sure that you are a very busy person, but it was an absolute pleasure to speak with you.
Likewise, and thank you for taking the time to give me some space for your listeners there. And yeah, I guess it's afternoon where you are at. So
yes, it's pretty early afternoon, and I'm sure it's night there. So I mean, thank you
even more
for that.
9 o'clock in the evening.
Oh, wow.
No, but I started interviews at 7, so that's fine.
Long night.
It is what it is. I mean, the alternative is worse, right? When no one's interested.
I'm sure they've been knocking down your door to get interviews.
I've been very privileged, very much so.
Well, and I hope that
so
continues. Yeah, no, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your night. Take care.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.